All right, everybody, welcome. We are live coming to you from Shed Aquarium here in Chicago, Illinois. So excited that all of you could join us in during your lunch break. Oh boy, we've already got around 20 folks just popping on in. So I'm going to give us a couple of minutes here of just my wonderful face before we jump in and get to the reason why all of us are here. And that's to talk about ReShark and the importance of our work, not just here at the aquarium, but everywhere around the world as well. And it looks like we're already up to about 40 individuals. This is pretty fantastic. Now, friends, if you are just joining us, we are in a webinar mode, which means that we can see, you guys can see us, but we won't be able to see you at all. However, there is still ways that we can interact with one another. We're going to be doing some polls throughout this incredible Shed Talk, but we also have the chat feature open. If you're new to Zoom, if you don't know what that hotkey is, the hotkey, if you have a keyboard, is Alt plus H, and that'll pull up the chat window. But if not, if you hover over the Zoom with either your mouse or if you're on a tablet with your finger, there should be a little bar that pops up that has the chat little icon. It looks like a text icon down there that you can do to wish us hello in the chat if you want to say where you're from. We've had folks visit us from all over the world on these things, so it's always cool to see what sort of connections and bridges we are building through this. Now, we are almost up to 50 folks, which is just around half of the people expected. So I am going to give it just another minute to see how many more folks will jump us in. Oh, we've got Gregory joining in from Toronto. Good to see you. We've also got Vicky coming in from Tucson, Arizona. That's amazing. So we've got people from a little bit, well, I guess Toronto's east, not necessarily north, because it's right along the Great Lakes there. But of course, Tucson very much south of us as well. Well, this is fantastic. So excited to have all of you here. Friends, my name is Brian, and we'll do some more introductions as we go through today. But to get us started here, we are coming up at 2 minutes in. We've got around 50 folks in. I'm just going to pull this next thing up because this is really cool. This is next level technology, integration, all of those buzzwords. But friends, we've got what's called a Mentimeter presentation. So on the screen, you can either go to menti.com, either on your smartphone or on your browser if you've got a second screen. And then if you type in that code, you'll see a fun little question that we have set up for all of you. And we've got a couple of those throughout, but don't worry, these instructions will pop up on the screen whenever we are ready for those. So while we're waiting, we're just going to give it another 2 minutes. Oh, and we've got Liz coming in, Herson. Thank you for hosting another Shed Talk. Yes. And we've got, of course, another person visiting in from Toronto, Ontario as well. This is amazing that we've got some folks from Toronto here because I love Toronto. I love the Ontario area, Niagara Falls, both the American side and the Canadian side. Went there all the time. I had the privilege of living in Cleveland, but to take the trip up going around New York State only took us about 6 hours. So I had the really awesome privilege of visiting Toronto quite often in my youth. Love the city, love the town, and love the lakes. Love one of the Great Lakes, Ontario. All right. Well, friends, it is 12:04. And at 12:05, we are going to get a hard start. And so as folks trickle on in, that'll be fine. They can come on in and really get a sense of what we're doing today. So friends, once again, if you're just joining us, welcome. My name is Brian. I'll be your host today for our Shed Talk, and we're going to get started here in, well, it's 12:05, so not a minute. No more talking from me. Let's actually go see this question from the Menti that we just got started. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen and I'm going to share one other screen with us. Here we go. So friends, up on your screen right now should be this incredible word board. So our question was, when you think of sharks, what word comes to mind? It could be words, and already, let's just check this out because this is actually quite fascinating. Look at that big one, scary, right? Mysterious, endangered, all three of those huge words coming together. But we've also got oceans, powerful, diverse. I love this. Bite, right? Fins, very important. Yes, I love these words. This is incredible. So friends, thank you so much for participating in this. This is going to be going on throughout, so keep feeling free to add some more words. But yeah, look, endangered just got even bigger, scary just got even bigger, but we've also got amazing coming in, and misunderstood as well. All right, so that's really cool. Like I said, we've got a whole second one coming, but we didn't come here just for a Mentimeter board. We came here to really learn a little bit about sharks and our ReShark program. So here was the question again, but that's not why we're here. We're here today to celebrate the work and the life of one of our really most important people throughout the aquarium at Shed. There's me on the left-hand side of your screen. Don't look at me. Gross. But let's look at Lise Watson, who is the Assistant Director for Animal Operations and Habitats, and just an absolute wizard when it comes to all things shark and their welfare and how to really do the best job equitably, not just for those shark species, but also the environment around them. So without further ado, let me bring Lisa in here. I'm going to make you the spotlight. Look at you. There you are, Lise. And I know
Hi, everyone.
you've got some intros that you'd like to do as well before we really jump into the meat of it. So I'll let you take it away from here.
Well, Brian, thank you for that amazing introduction. I hope I can live up to all of that. And I wanted to thank everybody for joining us today and taking time out of, I know what everybody's busy schedules are, to hear what we have to say about some of the groundbreaking work that we're doing with ReShark. So I wanted to let you know that the participation that Shed Aquarium does with ReShark is one of the many ways that we actively participate in conservation, not only here, but in locations around the world. So what exactly is ReShark? Well, it's an international collective whose focus is recovering threatened sharks and ray populations around the world. So that's its main purpose. Shed Aquarium is an active contributor to ReShark's first project. It's called STAR. And as I mentioned, it's a first of its kind conservation pilot to restore zebra sharks in an area called Raja Ampat, which is in Indonesia, where those native populations are at risk of extinction. And you might be wondering why this project is called STAR. Everybody wants to know, what does that mean? Well, STAR stands for, the ST stands for Stegosoma tigrinum, which is the scientific name of zebra sharks. And the AR stands for augmentation and recovery, which just means that we're trying to augment or increase the populations to ultimately lead to the recovery of the species in the wild. And how do we really ReShark Raja Ampat, sorry. And that would be through the introduction of juveniles from genetically appropriate adults that are at participating zoos and aquariums throughout the world.
So Lise, why zebra sharks in particular are we focusing on them?
And that's a great question. And this is a really great pilot program, pilot species for many reasons. One of which is that it's an endangered species that thrives in human care. Also, it's a large species. These animals get about 6.5 to 7 feet, and they also lay eggs, which is unique for some of the larger species of sharks. So shipping fertile eggs is a lot easier than shipping young, especially this far away. Also, prior to this project, zebra sharks were the first species that the Association of Zoos and Aquariums had a species survival plan for. So we already had a couple decades of information on hatching and rearing this really challenging species. In addition to being among the few aquariums worldwide that's had successful breeding and rearing of the species, Shed Aquarium has also amassed decades of experience and data collection through the direct care of not only zebra sharks, but numerous shark and ray species.
That is incredible. So what made us choose Raja Ampat?
Well, if you look at the photo at the bottom, you can probably wonder why. No, I'm just joking. It's a terrible place to have to go. But one of the main reasons really is that in recent years, zebra shark populations that were once plentiful in Raja Ampat have quickly and dramatically declined. And it's primarily due to overharvesting. Now that this area is a marine protected area that has patrolling and enforcement in place, we're seeing other shark species and rays species such as blacktip reef sharks that you see in the photo above and manta rays recover. So since the wild population in this area is not sufficient for repopulation, this is where our STAR project comes in.
And for our friends who don't know what blacktip reef sharks look like out in the wild, Lise, I think you've done us a favor here, and you have a nice little video for us. So I'm going to optimize Zoom for this incredible video. So here we go. Let's take a look at it.
I was thrilled to be able to take this video. This was my first day in Cree in Raja and Pot, and this is the population of blacktip reef sharks that come into shore every morning during low tide. You probably saw all of those, that school of fish that was swimming around in there. So as the tide is low, a group of about 25 or 26 blacktip adults and subadults will be feeding in this area, which was pretty amazing for me to see. After about 38 years of working with sharks, I've never seen blacktip reef sharks in the wild. So this was pretty amazing for me. And I also had an opportunity to walk up the shore where I counted 22 juveniles. So it is really showing that these animals are really recovering with the measures, the enforcement measures that have been put in place here. And hopefully this will work as well for the zebra sharks that we're adding there.
Yeah, now obviously this is a huge thing. It's not just Shed Aquarium working by itself. So can you take us through some of the organizations that may have helped with this? And 1 second here, because we got to make sure that, there we go. I love it. Sorry.
No problem at all. And Brian, as you mentioned, this is a big project. It's a large collaborative, and a lot of the participating organizations are listed here. And it really takes a lot of people with knowledge in different areas to work together to make this happen. Shed is part of AZA, you see that at the bottom, which is the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, which also has a SAFE program. SAFE stands for Saving Animals from Extinction. And there is a focus on sharks and rays within that program. Other organizations like Conservation International, you see at the top, and Thrive Conservation, they are some of the organizations that had this initial idea for this program. And they brought this international group together for a conference to figure out what might be possible. This effort was also driven by the support of the Indonesian government, and their logo is the one that you see on the top right of your screen. You'll also see at the bottom left the IUCN SSC. Our groups love acronyms. So sorry to hit you with all of these acronyms, but what that stands for is the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, Species and the Species Survival Plan. Sorry. Within this group is the Shark Specialist Group with various expertise, and they are also involved. Shed Aquarium also provides leadership for the stud book and species survival plan that is within AZA, which helped to create the foundation with which this program was initially built on. And I'm also the program coordinator for that SSP.
Wow. So we are here with a celebrity, essentially.
Well, I'm glad to be able to have some background to be able to help with a conservation program like this, and to know that the decades of work that we've put into managing the stud book and helping with the species survival plan has created the foundation that something like this can be done with. So I'm thrilled to have that involvement.
Yeah, and it's not just black tips and zebra sharks, of course, that we have here at Shed Aquarium. So my question now, I want to shift it back to Mentimeter. So friends, if you want to go back to menti.com, where you were for that first word scramble, this is a quick question for all of you. How many shark species are currently here under Lisa's care at Shed? Because Lise, you personally are responsible for every single one of them. Yep, that's I would never lie to our friends here. But let's let me share the Menti screen so that way we can see everybody's guesses really quick. Here we go. So you should be able to see it up on your screen right now. Oh, we've got so many different guesses. We've got 5 folks who are saying 11. We've got 5. 4 people are saying 7. 9 people are saying 9. That's actually pretty cool. Now, 5 people could say 5, 7 say 7, 11 people say 11. That'd be great. All right, I'm going to give it just another couple of seconds here, and then Lise, you're going to be the tiebreaker here. You're going to be the one to tell us exactly how many species of sharks are here at Shed. And this is just sharks, right? We're not including rays in this. So this is just those, what'd you call them? The stegostomas?
What about the stegostomas?
Is that their scientific name? Not every shark is.
Stegostoma, yes,
Oh, there it
Stegostoma
is.
tigrinum.
Ooh, yes, I love it. See, I've learned a thing or two. All right, we've got 10 people coming at 11, 2 people for 5, 4 people for 7, and 11 people think 9. Okay, so it's a battle between 9 and 11. So Lise, tell us, how many shark species are here at Shed Aquarium?
Actually, I'm going to ask you, Brian, how many shark species are here at Shed Aquarium?
Well, last I checked, there was 12. Is that still correct?
I was just going to say it varies. So it's 11.
There it is.
There you go.
It's 11.
Okay. It does vary.
Very good. Well, see, I'm learning new along with all of our other friends. All right, so here we go. We've got 11 shark species here at Shed Aquarium. Obviously, that takes a lot of work. So how, being with all of those different species, is Shed involved with ReShark?
Well, as I previously mentioned, Shed is a founding partner for the STAR project and has been contributing to these efforts since that initial conference that I just talked to you about that was held in December of 2019. And since then, we've been involved on many different levels.
Wow.
One of the reasons we were initially involved is that Shed Aquarium has had one of the longest histories of working with zebra sharks. With over 20 years of experience, as I mentioned before, we've had one of the most successful breeding programs anywhere in the world. So we're using that expertise to be able to provide guidance for breeding, hatching, and rearing of the species. And that's basically what my expertise is. And one of the things that allowed me to be involved in this program. And as I mentioned too, I also serve as the program manager for the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, the Zebra Shark Species Survival Plan. So that really uniquely positions me to be able to help align the genetics of our population that's in human care in North America, so we can encourage breeding of genetically appropriate animals to help support this conservation initiative. I also am one of 5 members who make up the husbandry working group, and husbandry just means animal care. We're among the few people throughout the world who have extensive experience with this species. Our work's also involved creating an animal care husbandry manual. This allows us to have some guidelines to be able to use to teach the Indonesian staff that we're working with. And we also worked on the design of the hatchery, as well as the life support equipment design. And then ultimately, I spent 3 weeks in October at the Raja and Pot Research and Conservation Center, which is on the island of Cree. It's very confusing where you're at as far as knowing where these locations are. But I spent that time teaching Indonesian staff. And then I also work with and support the research working group. We provide biosamples, that's things like blood for genetic testing, infertile eggs for reproductive research, and other samples. And then in addition to this, our director of marine research, Dr. Steve Kessel, he sits on the research working group, and our director of public relations, Johnny Ford, also sits on the public relations working group. So we are fully involved in all of these areas.
Wow. Now, Lise, it was very difficult for you to be out there, and all the folks that are in right now are going to see this in just a second, because you were so kind enough to show us to take a video, to capture a video of how terrible the scenery was out there. So everybody, just warning you right now, we have to be very mindful that Lise was able to put herself in this setting for 3 weeks.
Here's the videos that we got after we sent the designs in of them building the hatchery. So on the right, you see the video while it was being built. The photos on the left-hand side are when the hatchery was completely built. The top picture, you'll see that there is a dock or area to be able to walk out there that was not built when I was there, but has since been completed. So,
Wow.
yeah, I was hoping that everybody would enjoy some of just a taste of the view of my office space that I had for the 3 weeks that I was there.
Yeah, hashtag jealous. I don't even know if hashtag's even used anymore, but and it wasn't just this. Obviously, there was some work to be had there too.
Absolutely. And this, honestly, I got this video from the Indonesian team on my WhatsApp, and honestly, this is my favorite video.
Wow.
This is actually showing Indonesian staff getting the grow out tubs out to the hatchery while it was being built before the walls were put up. However, like one of the questions that I often get with this conservation work is, why are these sharks nearly extinct from this area? And to be honest, the answer to that is that many of the people in this region really rely on fishing as their primary source of income. Zebra sharks are a slower bottom dwelling species, so they're easy to catch, and it's easy for them to be overfished. So one of the cool things I think about this video is that you see that the people that are in these tubs and rowing are actually some of the people who are engaged in illegal fishing practices, and whose income now comes from their work to help save species in Russia and Pod. And honestly, their income is higher doing this work since this marine protected area has animals coming back to the region. This is located right next to Cerrito Bay, which is a diving resort. So money comes in from divers coming back to this area because that's one of the biggest revenue sources is diving in this area. So the work that we're doing is not only helping the animals, but it's also helping the people that live there. So I'm really thrilled. And they're some of the loveliest people I've ever met. They're really wonderful.
That is fantastic. And now, of course, it wasn't all just funny games. I know I'm joking about how beautiful it is, but I mean, there is lots of science that goes into this, right?
Absolutely. And honestly, I was kind of bummed I didn't get to do that when I was there, but yeah, I thought that the video was pretty neat. Yes, this is some of the, unfortunately, more boring things that we have to do is we spent actually 2 years writing all of the protocols for the animal care. And part of that animal care is knowing how to support them outside of the wild. And even though this hatchery is built right on the water with water recirculating from that beautiful lagoon, we had to design specific enclosures that would work for the animals. What you're seeing on the far right, those square containers or square tanks are where the eggs first go and the pups are first hatched out. In the center, those are those tubs that you just saw the folks paddling over there. Wow. And then to the far left, those are, well, and that center part, that's grow out tubs. So when the animals get a little bit larger, it gives them a little bit more room to grow before they're ready for release. And then on the far left side is the life support equipment. So in a minute, I'm going to also show you a video inside that hatchery. So I'll be able to show you a little bit more of that in detail.
Wow.
And one of the issues that we had with designing this hatchery, the initial concept was going to be built close to shore, where they had, a dock. The problem with that is that the water temperatures that close to shore are so high that it's actually above the threshold for incubating the eggs. So there is a minimum and a maximum that those animals can tolerate, and the water was way too warm. So what we did instead is we built it out further, and that dark water that you see in the middle is deeper water. So we're actually able to pull from further out where the water is cooler, so that we will be within that threshold. Trying to do something like we do in an aquarium where it would be putting a chiller or a heat exchanger on it just doesn't work in these remote locations. We pursued a chiller, and to run a chiller out there was going to cost about $10,000 a month. It's crazy. So this was the easiest solution for us to do that was practical. And I love this aerial view of this workspace.
Yeah. Now, speaking of the workspace, which is this tiny little hut right out here, we've got some more videos for us. So I'm going to once again optimize our screen for video feedback, and here we go.
And this is a view of the lagoon that we took as well. So you can see it a little bit more up close in this video. And there's the dock that was being built when I was there, has now been finished. And in a moment, you're going to see inside the hatchery itself. We're going to walk in and take a little look around so you can see. The one interesting thing is this is all Papuan staff that built this hut in this hatchery in traditional fashion, which was amazing and is absolutely gorgeous inside. They did an amazing job. Here are those tubs that were brought out. They got painted out there. We built lids for them. On the right-hand side, you see windows. The window flaps will open up to allow airflow through there. As you can imagine, the temperatures are pretty hot. Those are where the water comes in. The tubs, those orange tubs, allow the water to come and flow through the system. There's a view out the window. And then in the back, you'll see part of the life support equipment like the UV sterilizers that helps purify the water before it goes to the enclosures where the animals are living. And then there are the egg tubs and the pup tubs once they actually hatch out. And there is one of the pups in there. I believe that was, yes, that was Charlie. The animals were named after some of the Indonesian government officials that helped support this program. So, and I think that one is Audra.
Oh, tree.
Yep, there we go, Audrey. Yep.
And Charlie.
And Charlie. Spent a lot of time working with Audrey and Charlie.
Wow. All right. I don't know if it in our optimizing for video, I don't know if it was a little bit choppy audio for our friends at home, but yes, so Charlie and Audrey, those are the two pups that we have in there. And that was the tour of the hatchery. But Lise, what do zebra shark eggs actually look like?
I think your next slide, you'll see
There we go.
some zebra shark eggs here at Shed. So as we're working on designing and building that hatchery, we're also working on breeding genetically appropriate animals to send to Indonesia. So here's some photos of what the eggs look like. And the egg cases are hard, have a hard, like leathery like exterior to them. And that helps protect that developing embryo. Also, when they're first laid, there are hair-like tendrils on either side of the eggs. We remove those when they're in our care, but in the wild, those tendrils are what holds the eggs in place wherever the female lays them. And that is the only female involvement. She lays the eggs, they stay there until they hatch.
Wow. And so obviously there's a little bit light in this picture over here. So our next video is going to be you looking inside of the egg, which is really cool. So let's check this out.
Yes, and that light behind the egg is method that we call candling. So it allows us to look inside the egg, and we do this on a weekly basis to be able to watch the developing embryo. It takes about 6 weeks before we actually see a small embryo developing like this. And incubation periods for eggs vary. As I said, that there's a low threshold and a high threshold here at Shed. And in most of the aquariums that we work with, the temperature is about 77 to 78 degrees. So it takes approximately 5.5 months for them to incubate. Wow. And one of the things that was a little bit challenging for us was having the eggs for about till they were about midway in incubation, and then having to send them to a warmer area, Raja and Pot. So we knew that the incubation period was going to be reduced in the warmer temperature. So it took us a little bit to try to figure out when exactly the husbandry working group members would need to go out there when those eggs would be hatching so that we would be able to provide support. And luckily, we were right within 2 days.
Oh, wow.
About within two days prior to our first member heading out there. So that was one of the things that was a little bit challenging for us to figure out, but I think we got it right.
Wow. So this is on topic. Elizabeth from the chat wants to know, how many fertilized eggs did we ship from Shed to Indonesia? Do we know?
Actually, we haven't been sending eggs from shed itself. Other
Oh,
partners have sent eggs at this point. Shed is actually, we're doing some more research, but our eggs are genetically tested, and our animals are producing something called parthenotes, which is asexual reproduction instead of sexual reproduction.
wow.
We are working on making some changes in our population to have that change, but at this point we have not been sending eggs. But because of our expertise with this species, this is one of the ways that we can really support this program and support our other partners at this moment.
For sure. And that's like the perfect transition, because here we go. Show us how we support.
Well, we said that now that we have this hatchery out there, we have to have eggs incubating. So how do we get them to Indonesia? And that is really more challenging than you might imagine. I always kind of joke about this, that it's kind of like the planes, trains, and automobiles movie, but in this case, it's planes, 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 boats, and boats. For myself, it took me 3 full days to get there because of transport logistics and travel logistics. So you can imagine if that's what it takes for a person to travel, trying to ship an egg is really challenging.
Wow. Yeah. All right. So, and then we're going to be going inside essentially some incubation habitats, right?
Well, what this is a holding area that was built at the
Oh,
Seattle Aquarium. Because of the members here in the United States, what we are gearing up for is having a lot of genetically appropriate eggs to send out. But because of those shipping logistics, it makes more sense to have one facility hold them. So that is going to be Seattle, and they're going to consolidate all of the eggs. They also have the permits to ship because you're dealing with international shipping. So also with Seattle being on the west coast of the United States, they're closer to
for sure.
to Indonesia. So it makes the shipment a little bit shorter. And talking about shipping them there, once they leave Seattle, they're going to go to Tokyo and then to Jakarta, which is about a 24-hour shipment. From there, it takes about a day before you can get to the next flight the following morning to go to West Papua, a city called Sarang. That's a 4-hour flight. And then you have to wait for the boats that will take you to the island. The island that I was working on was called Cree, which was over 2 boat rides, 3 hours. There's another location called Mazul, which is a 5-hour boat ride. So as you can imagine, trying to ship animals over this period of time is difficult. And also when they land at Jakarta, they have to go through customs clearance, which can take hours. So we've also partnered with the Jakarta Aquarium. They will hold the eggs once they get to Indonesia, so that we can hold them for these transitional periods. So they've been wonderful partners to work with.
Wow. It sounds like it was easier to get to Rajampat than it was downtown during NASCAR. And that's just a Chicago joke for the folks that live in Chicago. All right. So once those eggs do arrive at the hatchery, take us through that process.
Well, here you're actually seeing the first shipment that went there. On the far left side, you see those cardboard boxes. Those contain the eggs as they were shipped from the Sea Life Sydney, Australia facility. We wanted to work with Sea Life in Sydney first because Australia is a lot closer to Indonesia than the United States is. So for our first shipment, we wanted to do it from there. And just so you know how these eggs are shipped, inside of those cardboard boxes, there are styrofoam boxes that provide insulation. And then inside there are double bags filled with water, very highly oxygenated water. And they will contain 1 egg per bag. So each one of those boxes only contains 2 eggs. So we were giving them a lot more space, a lot of water, a lot of oxygen. And the way that we came out with this is inside of the water, we place a little device. It's called a data logger. And that is looking at dissolved oxygen levels, because the oxygen is really necessary for those embryos to continue to develop. And continue to breathe basically in those bags, and then also monitoring temperature, and to make sure that we did this the best way that we possibly could. We did mock shipments with infertile eggs between partners and did it over the same period of time it would take to go to Indonesia, kind of handled them a little bit rough to see what it would take, and expose them to things that we knew that these actual embryos and eggs would be exposed to come up with the protocol for the best way to do it. In the middle, I mentioned the Jakarta Aquarium. That is their holding for the eggs while they sit there. And in this case, for the first shipment, they actually sat there for days because there were some challenges getting them through customs clearance. And then after that, the picture on the right-hand side, when the shipment originally, initially went to the hatchery, this is the initial ceremony to bless the hatchery and the animals that will be living there. So I thought that was really lovely.
Wow. Now, speaking of getting out to the hatchery and commutes, right? CTA is no exception to this. I think you were so kind to show us your daily commute out to the hatchery, since of course that dock wasn't finished. So once again, I'm going to share our screen because we have an incredible video clip to share for everybody. So here we go.
This was just a fun one that I threw in there. But this is how I got to the hatchery every day. Although the staff that were working with me, they would take the boat back and I would take my mask and snorkel and fins and spend a good hour in that local reef, diving one of the most beautiful reefs around.
Wow, that's incredible. And a work trip. It's a work trip.
It is a work trip. It is a work trip. I was working.
Well, speaking of working, you had a lot of work to do with the folks that are going to be there full time. So yeah, show us how you trained all of our friends here.
Well, as I said, my primary role is on the animal care side, and since we've been hatching and rearing zebra sharks for over a decade, this allowed me to help them with getting the hatchery set up the way it needed to, and just work with them on the initial feedings and whatnot. So you can see me working with the staff. The top middle is me working with them, trying to make sure that we have secured lids. So I'm helping them make a lid for that. But when we were out there, we were spending about 6 to 7 hours every day at the hatchery doing things like maintaining the filtration system, recording water quality parameters, health data on the animals, collecting live foods, feeding the animals, cleaning the enclosures. So that's how we spend our days.
Yeah, so you definitely deserved a little break by exploring the coral and the reef ecosystems afterward. That is fantastic. Now, of course, you talked about the challenges of logistics, right? Getting those eggs out to this part of the world. However, what are some other learning curves working with other folks or other institutions or just these animals in the wild? What are some learning curves that you saw or had to deal with?
There's been a lot of learning curves. This has been a learning experience for all of us that are involved, because it's never been done before. So obviously we're going to be learning some new things. And caring for a zebra shark that is in human care for the rest of its life is very different than caring for one who's ultimately going to be released into the wild. So we're trying to raise them in a way that sets them up for success. In aquarium care, we're feeding them restaurant grade seafood that was frozen. In this case, we need to go out and collect food for them. The photo on the left-hand side is me in the water. Dock. I hated having to do this on a regular basis. So getting into the 80-degree water, 85-degree water, and taking snails off of the pilings. There were thousands of them on the piling. What we would do is collect them, and then in the middle picture, you'll see some tubs that that's where the live foods were being held for the 3 feedings that we were doing every day. And then on the right-hand side, you have a little video. This is a learning curve of the animals. So you'll see that shark and his tail moving really hard and pushing that snail around. It took them about a week before they could really learn how to eat the live snails. And ultimately, they were eating
Wow.
5% of their body weight per day, but it was really a learning curve for them too. It may not seem like it's a big deal, but those snails could adhere to the bottom really hard. That's why he's pushing his tail to kind of get some momentum.
Mm.
But it was really interesting to watch these pups develop, and they really learned these techniques pretty quickly. So and by the end they were going up the walls and popping them off the walls and eating them. It was just amazing to watch, and very cool.
Yes.
Yep.
Now, of course, they don't stay just like our children at home. They don't stay kids forever. They don't stay pups forever. So they do grow to be adults. So take us through what that looks like and how that process happens.
And absolutely. So one of the things that I didn't really mention, I mentioned that they're eating clams and snails as juveniles, but this is a unique shark species. And if you look at the mouth there, you see
Yeah.
that unlike a lot of species of sharks that you think of that have, long pointy teeth that are primarily fish eaters, these guys are primarily invertebrate eaters, and they do eat a lot of hard-shelled animals. So their mouths are uniquely designed for crushing. And you can see that that's how those mouths are designed for crushing those shells, and they suck the meat out and then spit the shells out. So it's
Oh, wow.
pretty cool to watch. But you can see on an adult there what their mouths are. One of the things that I guess I take for granted that everybody knows, but I didn't really mention, and now that you're seeing an adult, I probably should mention, you saw the zebra shark pups and you see that they're black and white striped. That's where they get the name zebra shark. But as you can see, the adults look very
Yeah.
different, and those stripes turn into spots very quickly. Within the first about 6 months, they start getting spots on their bodies until they're fully spotted. And common names don't really mean a whole lot. They're called zebra sharks here in the United States. In other parts of the world, like Australia, they're referred to as leopard sharks. However, in the United States, there is a temperate water shark off the coast of California that they refer to as a leopard shark. So we just call them zebra sharks here.
Yes. And just like my mother, of course, wants to make sure that she knows where I am all the time. Do we do that with our zebra shark babes?
That is a great segue, Brian, I have to say, to how do we keep track of them? So once the animals are large enough, we surgically implant an acoustic tag, which you see here on one of the animals. And then there are monitors throughout the area that communicate with the trackers so that we'll know where those animals go after they've been released.
Amazing.
And here I just really wanted to show you kind of full circle from hatching to release. You see the young hatched pup on the right. The top left side is kind of that middle stage where they're not quite ready to be released, but they're too big for staying in the grow outs. So that is the sea pen. In the back, you can see some netting. So this is an area that the animals can still be monitored and even be provided with supplemental food, but they can forage for themselves. And this is where they kind of prove themselves, whether or not they are ready to be released. And that photo on the bottom in the middle, I don't know if you can see, I'm going to take you away from me, but if you can see this National Geographic that just came out this month, that is a photo from the National Geographic shoot of the first zebra shark pup to be released. And Shed Aquarium also has involvement in there. You'll see one of our adults in the National Geographic as well. So that is the first one. And you see our partner Nesha, who works for Thrive Conservation and is our main contact in Indonesia for this project.
Wow, that is amazing. So all of you that are on this call right now, you're getting a sneak peek at the next edition of National Geographic.
Actually, it's this one. It's this month. It's
Wow.
out. Just came out.
Okay.
That copy just landed on my desk a few days ago. So it is
What?
out now. So I'm very excited that we finally
Hot,
saw our work
yes.
in print now too.
Hot off the presses. I love that. Okay, and speaking of taking full circle, I know we've got another video to make all of us jealous, of course, of your time there over the past couple of weeks. So let's give this the panoramic view of your whole office.
I mean,
Wow.
I just really wanted to leave everyone with a final video of this stunning location that I really had the privilege of working at. And ultimately, we hope that this is the location where zebra sharks will thrive again in Indonesia. So I really want to thank everybody for joining us. And I hope you enjoyed at least my part of the talk.
Well, look, Lisa, I can already tell you a bunch of folks already have, because we have some questions, and this is the perfect time, because now everybody is the time for Q&A. So we are here, of course, with Lise, our resident expert, who's on the cover of National Geographic. I don't care who that other person was. It was you in spirit. But let's get to some questions, because I already know we've got some in the Q&A feature. Also, don't hesitate to reach out in chat. That's where I'm going to start off first. So we've got Charlie coming in, and he asked, how fast can we breed sharks? So zebra sharks, you said, took 5 to 6, what was it, weeks?
It's actually the incubation. So the incubation on an egg that's laid, that's fertile, is, again, it's temperature dependent, but it's around 150, 160 days, about 5.5 months for the ones that we have here at Shed. And as far as how frequently they lay eggs, it varies. A lot varies with maturity, and varies from individual to individual as well. And they lay them in a cycle. So an individual can lay even 50 or more eggs in a year. But the interesting thing with the egg laying is they lay them in clutches, like 1 to 6 at a time. And within those clutches, you can have what's called a wind egg, which is an egg without a yolk. So that basically has nothing, it can't be fertile because it has no yolk. So in addition, there's eggs that have yolks, and then we monitor them for a while. And if they don't start to develop around 6 weeks, that generally means they're infertile, and you'll start to see that yolk break down. So out of a clutch, you may only get 1 or 2 eggs that are fertile, and not all of them thrive because of this situation that you have, that we're seeing more incidents of parthenogenesis, which is that asexual reproduction. Those will not thrive. So we don't know that until the eggs or the pups hatch. So that's another factor in breeding this particular species.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because we have a question here that I think is perfectly transitioned to that. Because you talked before about genetically appropriate eggs. And is that what you mean when we're talking about genetically appropriate, or are we also talking about parts of the species survival plan and making sure that we're not pumping of the same genetic codes into the same?
Well, that actually is a great question. And part of any facility's involvement with the STAR project requires genetic testing. And that is of the adults. And the adults, yes, it will tell us if, at this point, all of the adults were sexually reproduced. So we don't have any problems in our adult population. But what we're doing genetic testing for is that there are Eastern and Western populations. So we need to make sure that the Eastern population is what's in Indonesia right now, and we're looking to work in the Western population as well. But for the work that we're doing in Cree and Missoula, they need to be Eastern population. So that's part of my work as the SSP coordinator, and working with the Association of Zoos and Aquariums population, because as we make breeding and transfer recommendations, we want to make sure that the animals have been genetically tested. We're putting animals together that are going to make appropriate breeders for this program. So we're kind of working hand in hand. It's nice that not only myself, but the rest of the leadership for the SSP are also STAR Project Husbandry Working Group members. So we're trying to leverage both of our expertise in both areas to be able to help align our population here to be able to help support this program. And not only here, we're also working with some of our international partners to help there as well.
Wow, fantastic. Such an eloquent answer. So our next couple of questions, kind of two-parter, but they're both going to be revolving around temperatures. And
Okay.
so the first question, does the temperature of the water when you incubate those eggs, does that affect whether or not they're the sex? And then the second part to that is, are you concerned about the ocean temperatures increasing and affecting zebra shark eggs and pups that are released in that area?
The first part of the question, does it affect sex? And the answer to that is we don't know.
Oh,
And
wow.
I had written a chapter for something called the Elasmobranch Husbandry Manual, because that was one of the, I've had, many questions about zebra sharks and their reproduction, and wanted to help support our industry with more answers. So surveyed people all over, and we're looking at those temperatures that they incubated at and what sexes that they had, and didn't have a large enough sample size to be able to really give that answer. So we really don't know at this point, but it seems to lean on the higher temperatures towards females, but we're not positive that's really what's influencing it because of the number that we had.
Wow.
What was the second part of the question?
And the
Remind me.
second part was, are we concerned about ocean
Oh,
temperatures affecting zebra shark eggs and pups when you release them?
I mean, we're concerned about temperature warming in the oceans for a number of different reasons, and
Yeah.
it can affect not only zebra sharks but corals is one of the other things that we're studying. There's a lot of things that are affected by the warming of our seas and the warming of our earth. So looking at global warming and ways that we can prevent it is something that we are passionate about, and it affects everything. And we can't even say to what extent it would affect this particular species, but yes, it is a problem across the board.
For sure. Now we have about 8 minutes left, and I want to take just another 3 minutes for questions, and I think we can, because we've got some that are linked together, and then we'll have a little wrap up and a thank you before we send you guys back off on your day. But Lisa, our next question, I think you're going to love it because it gets right down to the work. For the tagged pups that are released in the lagoon, can the public help monitor or track or watch them at all, or is that just strictly of folks at the hatchery job?
That is actually just the folks that are in Indonesia, and they learned from the first animal that was released that they needed a larger, what's called an acoustic array, set up to be able to monitor further away. So that's the work that they're doing and monitoring.
Yeah, because you mentioned that there were those acoustic tags.
Yep.
So unfortunately, my mother wouldn't be able to track me on what on my Where's My Son app. I don't know why my
We need to
mother's
put a
coming into
little
that.
air tag on. We need to put a little air tag on everybody so that we know where
Yes, that would
everybody is.
be.
Yep.
Yes, that'd be amazing.
I don't know.
I mean,
Might be
that's
part of the
maybe next year.
group.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so these next couple of questions, once again, going to be similar related. First part from Kalina is, how long do zebra sharks live? So what's their median life expectancy, both in the wild and in sheds care? And I'll get to my second part after you answer that one.
Well, in the wild, we don't know again. I've done a lot of work with Dr. Christine Dudgeon, who does the assessment of them in the wild when you say they're endangered. She's one of the people that's responsible for some of that work. In human care, I can't say it's shed, but in human care, the oldest animal that I knew of in the stud book was a founder in Australia, in Reef HQ in Australia. The oldest one that we know a full age on, or a specific age on, was 35 years old when he passed. We have a female in our care that was a very mature adult when she arrived, and the youngest she could be is 27 years. So we don't know how old she is, and she's still producing fertile eggs. So again, these animals aren't really tracked from the time that they hatch through mortality in the wild. So a lot of that data is really coming from the animals that are in our care. And at this point, we have animals that are well into their upper 20s and older than that. This is a species that hasn't been cared for in aquaria for very long. So a lot of our data is a little bit newer. So we keep learning as we keep working with the animals.
Well, I love that. I love that shed is sort of like part of that process in discovering all this, which is incredible that you get to be on the bottom floor essentially of finding all this information out. Now, the second part to this is, have any of the sharks that we've released, I know it's the thing is in its infancy, but have there been any sharks that have been released and subsequently have died or passed away early on, or are we still tracking that?
We're still tracking that. To our knowledge, the information that we've been giving from our partners in Indonesia is that all of the animals that they know of are still doing well.
Amazing. Well, we are right on schedule, on time. It is 5 minutes until the top of the hour. So Lise, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your knowledge and sharing the trip and sharing all the incredible work that Shed Aquarium and our partners around the world are doing, not just for sharks and the zebra shark population, but in essence for all of us, especially when we talk about climate change and the ocean warming temperatures. That affects all of us, even up here on land. So thank you for being boots on the ground and helping us out here. And can we just give some incredible, yep, I already see in the chat, lots of thank yous, lots of great works. And I just want to echo that sentiment. Lise, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Brian, for hosting, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm thrilled that you wanted to hear about our work.
Yes. All right. Well, Lise, we'll let you get back to your ever important job, because now I want to bring in another person who is in on this call as well. We've got Becca Boyer, who's going to be talking all sorts of incredible stuff. So let me reshare my screen for the PowerPoint so we can really end this with a bang. Here we go. Take it away.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you again to Lise Watson. This is such an incredible look at all of our work here at Shed and also as it expands around our blue planet, including Indonesia. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. As Brian mentioned, my name is Becca Boyer, and I'm the manager of membership and annual giving here at Shed Aquarium. And while we all have a huge applause to our on-site Shed staff members, we want to thank you, our members, who ensure the beautiful ecosystems across the globe remain healthy and thriving. Your continued curiosity is critical to our work and mission. As we look toward our 100th anniversary in 2030, Shed Aquarium is thrilled to be embarking on a transformational centennial commitment, an exciting surge forward that leverages nearly a century of success to accelerate our work for people, for community, and for aquatic life. This vision includes deeper community investments and partnerships, a modernized aquarium experience, accelerated aquatic research, and so much more. This vital work will include every single person gathered here who understands the importance of protecting and preserving our blue planet. As we close today, I'd like to remind you to reserve your timed entry ticket in advance through your online member portal. That way you can come to look the sharks in the eye at Wild Reef and all around the aquarium. Thank you again for participating in today's Shed Talk. We look forward to welcoming you in person and for a deeper dive at all Shed Aquarium has to offer.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Becca. And look, friends, I don't want to keep you anymore from your incredible days and afternoons. Please enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you on the next one. All right, everybody, enjoy your time, and we will see you next one. All right. Bye, everybody. Here we go.